I just want to ask before we begin, in front of the Shul license plate 23LN24, and needs to be moved or it will have to be towed. Again, license plate 23LN24, please move your car. And with that, I'll introduce the chair of UJA's board to kick us off, Mr. Jeff Rosenthal.
That was great. Everyone, chair of UJA. I know that every person in this room truly wishes that there was no need to gather in this fashion here tonight. But in light of what's happening, if we have to be here in Toronto, so far away from Israel, there is nowhere that we would rather be than with all of you. An incredible group of leading donors to UJA and our community. As Jews who love Israel, as parents who love our kids, as grandparents who love their grandchildren, and as human beings who value life and dignity, we're angry, we are sickened, and we're devastated by the images and stories that we see coming out of Israel. There are no words that can capture the scale of suffering or the depth of brutality and the evil that Israelis are confronting. We're here us who have been invested. Tonight, we'll be receiving a briefing on the emergency needs in Israel and UJA's plan to deliver urgently needed support where it's most needed and when it's most needed, which is right now. We'll begin with reflections from Adam Minsky, UJA's president and CEO.
Thank you, Jeff. And at this difficult time, it is so wonderful to have you as my partner and leading the organization as chair of the board. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Adam Minsky. I'm the president and CEO of UJA Federation. I want to begin by saying that I can't overemphasize enough how reassuring it is to be in a room surrounded by so many incredible, generous leaders in our Jewish community. Thank you so much for being here. I also want to point out that we have a photographer named Leora here. She's just in the back taking photos, and I just wanted you to know that it's not that we are compiling some kind of event photo exhibit, but so much of what our community's been doing, whether it was the rally on Monday night, or gatherings like this, feels so historic in terms of our response to what's happening in Israel that we wanted to make sure that we were capturing this so that we'll have it in our Ontario Jewish archives. We certainly feel that Israel is in dangerously uncharted waters. Right now, we are in a situation that we could never have imagined. It feels like so many of the paradigms that all of us have known to be true, the ideas that keep us grounded, have collapsed. You know, there's the paradigm of scope and time. Never before in a 24-hour period have we seen the kind of loss that we've just experienced in Israel. It's overwhelming. 1,200 people murdered, more than 3,000 wounded, and an estimated 150 held captive by terrorists in Gaza. It really is that we've witnessed Israel's version of 9/11. There's also the paradigm of the Israeli public's confidence in its public institutions, which has really been weakened. People are despairing because they don't have confidence in their government or the military in the way that they used to. For us, we've been partners, many of you know, because you've supported our work for many, many years, with the amazing community of Sderot, which is right on the border with Gaza. In fact, many of you were with us for our Israel at 75 mission, where On Yom HaZikaron, we were all together in Sderot, visiting with that community. And you know that the paradigm for us used to be helping those communities protect themselves against the risk of rocket attack. We still have to do that, unfortunately. But now the paradigm is that they are also very much concerned with human terrorists as the borders have been breached, and people are terrified that they need to, in addition to rocket-proofing their establishments, make sure that they have the kind of armed protection that they need. And last but not least, there's the paradigm that Israel was created as a refuge for Jews. And for the first time in its history, there is going to be a problem of internally displaced Jews within Israel, as the communities that are along the border with the Gaza Strip have been burned and destroyed. Those communities are going to take years to rebuild, and that's if we're able to support the population in order to be able to give them the confidence to ever want to return to those communities. And so the natural feeling for a community like ours that's 6,000 miles away can be a feeling of helplessness. But we are anything but helpless in this. And it falls on a community like ours, the Toronto Jewish community, to lead the diaspora in demonstrating just that. We are far from helpless. There are many charities and many great ways to make an impact. But UJA was built to handle massive, complex, multifaceted, and fast-changing challenges for the Jewish community. Because our mission is very clear. It's this: we exist in order to mobilize the total resources of our Jewish community in order to make the largest possible impact that we can. And so, using already the resources that we have through our annual campaign, we're making sure that our community here in Toronto is prepared in many ways. Whether it's right now mobilizing the community to donate medical supplies that we're flying to Israel, or mobilizing psychologists and social workers who are working together with our human service agencies to support so many people in this Jewish community who are traumatized by what they're seeing happening in Israel. We're launching a social media campaign so that community members can share their voice and their experience so that the general community starts to understand what's really happening in Israel. We're supporting our day schools and parents to educate them on how to teach and how to talk to their kids about what's happening in Israel. We're highly involved in community security, making sure that all of our community institutions, be they synagogues like this one, or schools, or community centers, have the training and protection that they need. Many of you will know that we sent out an email this evening based on a very upsetting social media post from Hamas that was threatening different Jewish communities in the diaspora on Friday, giving instruction and what the police here, what our counterparts in the United States who work with the FBI and with our security counterparts in Israel are telling us in terms of how to handle that situation. And of course, we're advocating through our partners at the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs with the government of Canada at all three levels to make sure that our government remains in lockstep with Israel as we go through this incredibly challenging time. But why we're here tonight is to talk about what's most pressing. We are launching an Israel emergency campaign in order to meet the extreme level of need right now in southern Israel, including our longtime partner community of Sderot. Our strategy to make a real impact in this area is anchored in three big ideas. One of the things that sets us apart is that we have been involved as a partner in Sderot since 2006 for 17 years. Some of the people here in this room are part of our Israel and Overseas Committee, the committed volunteers who oversee the grant making we do in Israel and will be overseeing the grant making we're doing during this emergency campaign. What they know is that for 17 years, we know who's been on the ground in southern Israel, in Sderot, helping those communities thrive and be resilient, and who will be on the ground once this is done. Because what's happening right now is everyone's inboxes are filled with appeals from every organization possible. We want to make sure that we are able to support those who have been committed to helping southern Israel be resilient and to thrive, and those who will be there for the long term. The second thing you should know about how we're using resources in the emergency campaign is that this type of conflict is an extremely complex conflict that does not have one organization, that if you only gave your money to that one organization, they could solve the entire problem. What we do is we invest in multiple organizations that we bring together to collaborate in order to strengthen the kind of response that we can have in southern Israel, which is so critical right now. And the third thing you should know is that there is real urgent need on the ground. I would like to, on Friday, provided that it's available and things are looking very promising, to grant $10 million in immediate relief to southern Israel. We're going to operate in two phases. We are going to provide immediate relief while this conflict is going on. It needs to go for things like helping victims of terror. Imagine if you just look at the numbers of how many people have been murdered, how many people have been wounded and kidnapped. The number of families is already 4,000. To just help support those 4,000 families is going to be an enormous job and will require tremendous support. We will be there for that. We will be there to help the local municipalities who are appealing to us for protective clothing because they are now in a much riskier situation than they normally are when they go out onto the street. We are going to be providing food and relief to the displaced people, people who were living along those communities who survived the recent attack and are now in communities like Eilat in the south and other parts of Israel where they are trying to reestablish themselves. There's then going to be a second phase to this because, my friends, we've had this experience before in Israel, not on this scale, but certainly experiences where there's been devastation in Israel, and we know in order to truly help people reestablish their lives, you need to be with them for at least 3 to 5 years after for them to rebuild their communities. And so we want to make sure that anything that we're doing is going to be sustainable so that it won't be as it was in other conflicts where there was an intense amount of investment in these communities in a very short period of time, and then it went away. Just like UJA has been in the South since 2006, helping with a team on the ground, we are going to be there over the next 5 years, certainly, to make sure that this recovery goes as it should. This is why we need your help. This is something that matters tremendously to Israel and to Jewish communities around the world. We have an opportunity to do something tonight in Toronto that is incredibly meaningful. So many communities across North America have been calling to ask, what are we doing as a community? They saw photos of our rally that had somewhere between 25 and 30,000 people at Mel Lastman Square. No community has pulled that off so far. They're asking what we're doing from a fundraising perspective, and they want to know what a community of 200,000 Jews can do. And so we, with our emergency campaign, ask you to please consider, go the extra mile, help us really demonstrate what a Jewish community that is deeply connected to Israel can do. And not only will it do tremendous good for Israel, but I promise you, it will set the bar for what every other Canadian Jewish community does and what the major American Jewish communities will do. The impact that we can have here goes far beyond the GTA. And with that, I'd like to thank you all for being here. Thank you in advance. Those of you who've already made a gift, thank you. Those of you who will be helping us achieve what we need to do together, I want to thank you. And I want to introduce a video from the Director General of our office, the United Israel Appeal Office in Israel, Sarah Mali. Thank you.
Okay. I want to talk to you tonight about the way the Israeli people have changed in the last 4 days. The first thing is that every single Israeli is mourning. Every person knows somebody who's been killed, has been injured, who, God forbid, has been taken hostage in Gaza. It is too much to bear. The second is the decimation of our trust of our institution, the loss of our faith in how we're protected. We've never had this kind of terror before, that people will come into our homes in such a way and on such a scale. And we've been left asking ourselves how we can be protected and who will protect us. And on the back of the political situation that's happened over the last few months, it's a very destabilizing feeling. The good change is that we have a sense of moral clarity that we haven't had before. We've seen our enemy and we know who our enemy is. And we understand that we've deluded ourselves and we've told ourselves stories that we can cope with sporadic spasms of rockets and that it will be okay and that we can just carry on. We understand that we can't continue like we've done in the past and that things are going to have to dramatically change, and that will require real leadership to create a new reality in the region of the Gaza envelope and of Gaza itself. We also have seen Israeli society at its best. Israelis, unlike the society that I come from, go through pain to generosity, to self-sacrifice, to altruism, to goodness, the lines for blood donations, the home hospitality. We're internally displaced. We have internally displaced people in our communities right now, and there are a lot of them. The looking after, the care, the packages. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else right now. I hope will change in that the ultra-Orthodox communities and other communities that haven't taken real responsibility for protecting the only Jewish democratic state in the world will realize when they see the coffins and the amount of people mourning and feel that pain by osmosis or otherwise, that they have to step up and take responsibility for defending the only Jewish state we have. On a personal level, my daughter attended the funeral of her best friend's husband today. They got married 3 months ago, and she danced at their wedding, and today she stood and saw her 19-year-old friend give a hesped for her newly wedded husband. Her friend asked her last night, "Can I stand next to you at the funeral?" So the way that we've changed is that our children have lost their childhood. There's a WhatsApp going around for youth movement saying, can you help in cemeteries for teens? And the help that they're asking for is to dig graves. It is that kind of change that the loss of innocence feels immense. My son said to me today, he's 17, he's 6'3", he said, "Mummy, I can take a gun. I won't be an amazing soldier, but I'll be a decent soldier." And you see your child just listen to your son, and you can't believe that the words like that are coming out of his mouth. What's changed, or what feels amplified, is a sense of closeness with the Jewish people. The beauty of the Jewish people, that fabric that feels more connected now than ever before. Your support, the feeling that you're with us. But we will never be the same again. And I really hope that together we can find a new path forward.
Apologies. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Lefton. I'm the Chief Development Officer at UJA. I want to start by thanking all of you for coming tonight. And I'm looking around the room, and I'm actually seeing many of the people I've spoken to over the last 48 hours. And I want to really thank those of you who have already stepped up by calling us proactively and contributing to this emergency campaign. It's been incredibly meaningful to be part of a community that acts so quickly and steps up. So thank you. I started by feeling very, very helpless, and I feel like a lot of us probably still feel very, very helpless. But I'll say that I don't actually think that we are. I've been watching what we've been doing as a community, and I can say, speaking on behalf of myself and my colleagues at UJA, we actually feel like we're not necessarily sitting on the sidelines, but we are helping. We are able to do something together as a community. We are grateful to be part of an organization that can do something in this situation. It's an incredibly difficult time, and I think it means so much that so many of us have chosen to be in this room as donors, as UJA professionals, as UJA leadership, who are dedicated to making sure that the Jewish homeland is safe and secure, and that the Jewish people around the world are safe and secure. And I feel incredibly moved to be sitting in this room with a remarkable group of community members, our leading donors, our major and top gift donors. So thank you for being here, because I know that you're not just here in a crisis, but that all of you are here because you contribute year over year to the community and to the annual campaign. And frankly, it's your gifts year over year through the annual campaign that allowed us to be in the position that we're in to mobilize so quickly, both in Israel, on the ground, and here. And that's in terms of bringing volunteers together and in terms of raising the funds that we need to send immediately to put to work on the ground. Without you, we would not be able to respond to this historic crisis taking place in Israel right now. I want to talk a little bit about our needs for tonight. Our needs in Israel right now. But I want to mention first that our team in Israel on the ground is working in very close consultation with the Jewish Agency and the Joint Distribution Community, municipal authorities in our partner communities. We've identified the most immediate needs, and that's going to be the focus of this first funds that go over. Adam mentioned we're looking to send about $10 million before the weekend, and the funds are desperately needed now. So I'm going to talk a little bit about where the funds from our emergency campaign are going. First, we're purchasing protective gear for first responders. These are people who are really in the middle of the crisis: firefighters, paramedics, police officers, people who cannot afford the gear that they need to do their jobs, but in the current circumstances and the current conditions. They need vests, they need bulletproof vests, they need helmets, and they're doing their jobs and helping sick people, wounded people, vulnerable people in the middle of rockets falling, and they don't have the equipment that they need. And in many instances, they're doing it while there's fire, while there are shells coming down at them, trying to get people out. We need to bring them the equipment that they need so they can then go and help save lives. So that's number one. Number two, we heard earlier that thousands of people have already been displaced. You heard it when my colleague Sarah Malley spoke a minute ago in the video. Everyone who's been living in these border towns, I'd say in the south, but unfortunately now the situation's expanding to the north, they've had to go. And I would love to tell you that they're going somewhere that's safe, but I'm going to use the word safer instead because I don't think anyone there feels safe right now. So we've been moving people. People have been moving out of their homes, their towns, where they know everything to be their whole life, and they're completely displaced. And I'll give you one example. Just a show of hands, has anyone been to Eilat? Not Eilat? Eilat? Okay. So one of our partner communities at UJA that you've been supporting for many years through the annual campaign. The population in Eilat is 5,000. It's small. They have had an influx in the last 48 hours of 3,000 new people, almost doubling their population. And these are people who have left and literally come with nothing. They've left their homes, they've come, they don't have their medication, they don't have their clothing, they don't have anything they need, and they have nothing to go back to in many instances. We need to help these people find somewhere to live, find things to wear, and most of these people are not people who have access to immediate funds. These are people who are living on very, very tight budgets, and they are vulnerable. They are seniors in many cases, or young families. They need our help desperately. So that's number two. Number one, protective gear. Number two, helping these displaced people. And that's immediate funds for these goods on the ground to help them. I won't say resettle permanently, but at least get the support they need today, and we don't know how long it's going to be. We also don't know how many people, because it's an evolving situation. It's still going. Third, I think many of you are familiar with the Victims of Terror Fund through our partner on the ground, the Jewish Agency. It's an incredible, incredible program that provides financial relief, grants, in the form of grants, that go immediately to families who have been struck by terror. Those grants go to the families within 24 to 48 hours of the terror attack. That money is coming to them, and in many instances, these families don't have access to funds to keep them going. It could help them with burial, it could help them with immediate needs, it could help them, I was speaking to a colleague who was dealing with a family earlier who said the primary income earner was killed in a terror attack. These people live paycheck to paycheck. How are they buying their groceries? Right away. Like, this is the immediate thing. So instead of processing the grief, they're now thinking about how they make a payment on their rent, or they get food for their kids. So this fund provides immediate financial relief to those families. Fourth, and certainly I'm going to say last, but definitely not least, because I actually think this is the one that's going to continue the longest, is our investment in mental health and in PTSD support and trauma counseling. This is something I can't even tell you how long this is going to go on. I look at the needs coming out of COVID locally in Toronto. I have a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old, and I'll tell you, they're still impacted by COVID. And that's not what's happening in Israel. What's happening in Israel are these children are terrified that they are going to be kidnapped. They've witnessed their loved ones die in front of them. I can't even begin to imagine what's going to be needed in terms of an investment in mental health for these kids to grow up and try to move on from what they've seen. So these are the 4 things I want to focus on for the current emergency campaign. Now, the benefit of UJA's campaign is that, like anything we do, it's evolving. So as the needs change, or we see that there's enough funding in one area, we move on, because we're working with our partners on the ground. So, I'm telling you what the needs are now, but recognizing we're all in this together. I'm speaking to you as if we are all in this together, because I think we are. This is going to change as time goes, right? Like, we're going to have to see what happens and amend the campaign accordingly. I want to finish by saying a couple quick things about the campaign. I get asked this a lot, so I just want to share it totally transparently. 100% of the funds raised in the emergency campaign are going to Israel. 100%. There is not a single penny that is being taken off for administrative fees, overhead, things like that. Everything is going straight to Israel, and as Adam said, we are sending it as fast as possible. Okay, so I wanted to anticipate the question and let you know. For us, the only thing that matters is getting Israel the help that it needs. The second thing I want to really bring up honestly with everyone in this room, because again, I feel like we're in this together, because we need our community to be safe and secure, is that we're in a bit of a challenging position right now at UJA. We are all hands on deck, right, with the emergency campaign. But I think most people in the room know I have chairs and former chairs and lay people and canvassers in the room. We're also in the middle of our annual campaign. And the annual campaign is what keeps the community going. And it's what keeps our community secure, and it's what funds community security and vulnerable people living here. And frankly, a lot of the good work that we're doing in Israel that's going to be pivoted now to also help with this crisis. So I'm really hoping that we can consider, that you can consider tonight, both renewing your annual commitment, because without it, we won't have an infrastructure in place to take care of Israel. We won't have an infrastructure in place to deal with the increasing anti-Semitism that we all know is coming. Well, it's here. I shouldn't say it's coming, but it's going to get worse. And we won't have the infrastructure we need to increase our security, as we're going to need to do. We're already doing, right? So we absolutely are hoping that you will consider renewing your annual gift and looking at making a second one-time gift to help in Israel. The decisions that we make in the room tonight, as Adam said, are going to set the pace for the entire Jewish and others. When we in other cities, they look to us because we always outperform the other communities. And so if we hit a certain standard, they will try to match. or they will try to do as much as they can. And I will say this to anyone who listens because it's so important. So please, please, please help us lead the Jewish world, because collectively, that's what's going to make a difference for Israel. It's not just our piece. It's all the other federations and what we can do together. So I want to thank you all. I'm happy to answer any questions one-on-one. I'll be here after. My colleagues are around who can answer questions as well. And with that, I'd like to introduce Darren Gottlieb, who's one of our Major Gifts chairs.
Thank you, Sarah. Your words are so inspiring. Adam, yours as well. It's just such a privilege to be part of the UJA campaign, and as a co-chair of Major Gifts, I'm truly honored. My name is Darren Gottlieb, and I am Major Gifts co-chair along with Simone Levine, Perry Kirschenblatt, and Robert Schachter, each of whom you'll hear from later tonight. In a moment, we're going to hear from a special guest from Israel by Zoom. But first, we wanted to draw your attention to the pledge card that should be in your brochure. As Sarah mentioned, this is a moment where we need to do everything we can to strengthen Israelis and strengthen our Toronto Jewish community. Because now, more than ever, Israelis need a diaspora that is strong, proud, and willing to stand up for what it believes in. That's exactly what your gift to UJA's annual campaign does every year. Whether by funding Jewish education, Israel programming, advocacy, campus activism, or, especially important at this time, important work to strengthen community security and engage police in keeping us all safe. And so, the first thing we're asking you to do on your pledge card is to confirm your commitment to the annual campaign, so that we're able to fund the services and programs our community is counting on. But tonight, we're also asking you to make an additional one-time gift to UJA's emergency appeal for Israel. As Sarah mentioned, UJA is preparing to send an emergency transfer of funds to our partners in Israel on the ground less than 48 hours from now. The clock is ticking, and we all need to stretch in our generosity to meet the extreme needs right now. If you fill out your pledge card and raise it in your hand, a member of the team will come over to pick it up. And if you check the box that says you would like to announce your gift tonight, we will recognize your emergency pledge tonight on the screen in honor of your generosity. If you have already made your emergency gift, please fill out your pledge card so you can be honored appropriately. And to be clear, on the screen tonight will be just the amount that is provided to the emergency campaign. I'm honored to begin by announcing, along with my wife Sarah, that we feel privileged to contribute $25,000 to UJA's annual campaign and $10,000 to the emergency appeal for Israel. Thank you. We encourage you all throughout the rest of tonight's meeting to consider your pledge. I remember, Sarah, you telling me once, if you're not sure how much to give, make sure it hurts a little. And it's true. I mean, at the end of the day, we're in the diaspora. We have it easy. We send our kids to college, and our Israeli family sends their kids to war. So for me personally, it's a duty. And it's also a privilege to be able to give as much as it hurts in these trying times. With that, I'm pleased to announce one of our guest speakers from Israel, Avi Melamed. Avi is a former Israeli intelligence officer and senior official on Arab affairs. In his public service, he has held high-risk government, senior advisory, intelligence, and counter-terrorist intelligence positions in Arab cities and communities throughout the region on behalf of Israeli government agencies. Fluent in Hebrew, English, and Arabic, Avi brings a unique level of expertise to this situation, which is why we asked him to join us tonight. Thank you, Avi, for joining us. And as we welcome you, we also want to express our hopes and prayers that your loved ones are all safe. Thank you.
Darren, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Shalom from Israel. We are entering day 6 of this war. In the next 20 minutes, I would like to provide some framing of this war The purpose of this briefing is first to provide this understanding of the circumstances and the geostrategic perspective of the war, and we hope and believe that the knowledge that we will share with you will be useful for you as leaders of the Jewish community to explain, to advocate, and to make people understand what is the really story is about. In my session tonight, I will shortly explore a couple of points. How did we get here? Why did Hamas launch the war? Will Hezbollah join the war? And finally, concluding notes. How did we get here? I think that we are looking at a situation where you got a conjunction of two major processes that happened in the last couple of decades. One of them is in an inner Palestinian power struggle between the two major Palestinian players, Hamas on the one hand, and Fatah and the Palestinian Authority on the other hand. Hamas is an Islamic organization that vows to eliminate the state of Israel. It does not want to have any compromise. It doesn't want to have peace agreement. It simply wants to eliminate the state of Israel. The Palestinian Authority leads a more pragmatic approach, basically willing to conduct such process of dialogue with Israel in order to reach some sort of solution. The two organizations have been constantly competing for power and influence, and Hamas is constantly looking for points and advantage points in order to position itself as the senior and dominant Palestinian leader. He wants to dictate the trajectory of the conflict the way he wants to do that, and this is, of course, its radical approach. The second process is the rise to power in 1979 of the Mullah regime in Tehran. This is an extremely brutal, murderous regime that vows to eliminate the state of Israel. The Mullah regime in Tehran is leading a very aggressive regional policy, and it's based upon an array and a structure of armies of terror that the Mullah regime has been unfortunately successfully deploying in different parts of the Middle East, starting in Yemen, going through Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Gaza Strip. This array, this structure that the Mullah regime established consists of armed armies that the Mullah regime is financing, arming, training. Among those factors, there are names that you are probably familiar with, like, for example, the Hezbollah in Lebanon. Another one are Hamas and Islamic Jihad based in the Gaza Strip. As part of its strategy, the Mullah regime has been and is preparing this structure to eliminate the state of Israel through the use of conventional weapons. And this is a strategy that we are calling the Ring of Fire. The Ring of Fire strategy is basically based upon the concept of deploying massive Shiite and Sunni militias around Israel's neck in Lebanon, in Syria, in Gaza Strip. Those armies of terror massively armed to the teeth by the Mullah regime, particularly with weapons such as rockets, missiles, assaulting drones, and of course, thousands and thousands of militants. Those armies have one purpose. When they come, those armies are supposed together to launch a massive attack on the state of Israel and to destroy the state of Israel. As part of the tactic of the Ring of Fire, the Mullah regime has been constantly exhausting the state of Israel with repeating military rounds. In that regards, the major player in the service of that concept was Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Palestine. Both are located in Gaza Strip. And indeed, since Hamas took over Gaza Strip in 2007, we have witnessed the repeating military rounds and the intensifying military rounds between Israel and Gaza Strip. Those intensifying rounds were not by chance. They basically part of a master plan of exhausting Israel through those rounds. The ultimate purpose of this Ring of Fire is what the enemies of Israel call unifying of arenas, meaning when Hezbollah from Lebanon, when Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Gaza Strip, and thousands of Iranian-backed militants that currently are located in Syria will all join together to launch a massive attack on the state of Israel. There is something that is less maybe known in the Western discussion, and this is the fact that many people in the Arab world, many Palestinians, including many Palestinians in Gaza Strip, are holding Hamas for a long period of time responsible for the gloomy reality in Gaza Strip. Many people in the Arab world are basically saying to Hamas, you have dragged Gaza and the people of Gaza and the Palestinians to a dead end in the service of your extreme ideology and in the service of the interests of the Iranian regime. Why did Hamas launch that war? In my perspective, there are two major reasons that could explain it. One of them is what I've mentioned earlier, and this is the power struggle between Hamas on the one hand and the Palestinian Authority on the other hand. Remember, Hamas wants to position itself as the only dominant Palestinian leader. Hamas wants, accordingly, to be the one who set the course and trajectory of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The other thing that fuels Hamas' decision to launch this war is a process that took place in the region in the last couple of years, and this is the normalization process. In that context, the Abraham Accords, the agreement signed between Israel and the United Arab Emirates, Israel and Bahrain, Israel and Sudan, and Israel and Morocco, fueled the growing discontent, anger, and frustration among the Palestinians who felt that their brothers, the Arabs, are abandoning them. Hamas sees the opportunity, and he basically wants to set the course. That tendency of Hamas was further intensified and strengthened in the last couple of months, and this is against the background of the Israeli-Saudi dialogue. Hamas has decided that he is going to send a message as a regional player, and the message that Hamas sent is, we, Hamas, we, Islamic Jihad in Palestine, we are the one that decide what will be the course and trajectory of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Not the Saudis, not Egypt, not the United States of America. In other words, the war that Hamas launched against Israel is actually an act that is supposed to serve Hamas' needs to position itself as the dominant Palestinian leader, as the one who set the trajectory and the course of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and not less important. The war that Hamas launched against Israel is supposed to serve the Iranian interests. The Iranian regime is interested in further fueling and perpetuating the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The Iranian regime has been constantly fueling the flame of this conflict because it serves the Iranian regime. Fueling the flames of the conflict enabled the Iranian regime to present itself to the Arab world as if he, the Iranian regime, is the defender of the Palestinian, as if he, the Iranian regime, will be the one liberating Palestine. The Iranian regime couldn't care less about the Palestinian. The Iranian regime is using this story in order to expand its influence across the Middle East, in order to position himself as the dominant regional power. These were the conditions or the circumstances that resulted in the Hamas decision to launch that war. In the international discussion right now, and I've been busy from morning to night with endless interviews to international media news outlets, people are time and again asking whether Iran is involved in this whole thing. Let there be no mistake. Iran is involved in this thing to its teeth. Iran has been involved in the whole escalation and murderous reality that was formed in Gaza Strip from the beginning. Iran is the mastermind beyond this escalation that we have witnessed in Gaza Strip since 2007. There should be no mistake about it. I've been asked, how do I know that? People are talking about evidence. My answer is very simple. Hamas leaders are saying that openly and formally. So it should be known and acknowledged. What are we heading to in the next foreseeable future? Well, it seems like we are heading towards an Israeli-wide military operation in Gaza, which of course has a lot of ramifications. Israeli leaders have basically made it very clear that this time it's a totally different story. The objective apparently of the Israeli move is to permanently change the ground rules in Gaza Strip by eliminating Hamas and Islamic Jihad military capacities. At this time, as we are all, of course, focused in the events in the south, we are also at the same time looking to the north, to Lebanon. Lebanon is the place where Iran has its biggest and most significant proxy. This is the Hezbollah. The Hezbollah military capacities are triple, if not quadruple, in comparison to Islamic Jihad and Hamas. Hezbollah has an arsenal of 150, if not more, 1,000 rockets and missiles, including heavy missiles, high accuracy missiles provided to the Hezbollah by the Iranians, assaulting drones, units that were trained by the Iranians, intelligence gathering capacities, and so on and so on. We are looking at a very, very significant military threat. As of now, the Hezbollah is conducting a carefully calculated gradual military escalation of low-intensity attacks. This tactic aimed, as of now, to deter Israel from expanding the war against Hamas in Gaza Strip. It also reflects some sort of an inner Iranian dilemma. Should Iran basically give up the power base it has established in Gaza Strip if Israel is going to eliminate Hamas and Islamic Jihad military capacities? Or should Iran order Hezbollah to join the war to save Hamas, even if it means that Hamas capabilities will be badly damaged? So this is the situation right now in the context of Hezbollah in Lebanon. We are watching this arena as well very closely, and obviously we have to be tuned to development in that regard. I would like to conclude with a couple of notes. We are heading very, very rough times. We're heading in brutal war that will include heavy price in Israel, heavy price for Palestinians in Gaza Strip, and maybe if the war is expanding to other arenas, the price, of course, will be much more significant and severe. Eliminating Hamas and Islamic Jihad military capacities is the only way to allow Israelis and Palestinians to change this gloomy reality. This is the only way to offer Israelis and Palestinians some sort of a hope for maybe different future of hope and prosperity. Eliminating Hamas and Islamic Jihad military capacities will deprive Iran, will deprive the regime in Iran with the ability to continue and to play and to fuel the flames of the conflict as it will and as it wish. Eliminating Hamas and Islamic Jihad military capacity. By doing that, we will able to prevent or provide or prevent Hamas and Islamic Jihad from continuing dictating the trajectory of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict as they will and as they want. By doing that, by depriving Hamas and Islamic Jihad from their military capacities, by eliminating those capacities, we are creating the conditions for stability. That stability is needed if we want to have any kind of positive, constructive trajectory down the road. There is another aspect that I would like to share with you in the context of the war, and this is the whole issue of the social media and the graphic content. Obviously, we all understand that we are living in a world where everything is at the paw of the hand, including graphic contents and so on. I urge you to exercise an extremely cautious when you're looking at information. try to stick to formal information that is provided by reliable formal authorities alone. Please be careful when you are dealing with information that is spread in the social media network and so on. And one last note, with your permission, I think that this is a pivotal moment. And this is a moment also for changing paradigm, as mentioned before, earlier. In the last years, in the Western discussion, unfortunately, the whole story of Hamas, Islamic Jihad, the Iranian regime was misunderstood, mistranslated. It was associated with narratives of freedom fighters, of occupation, or fighting imperialism, and many other slogans and narratives that sounds wonderful. But the only problem with that was that they had nothing to do with the reality. The face of this ugly reality is now exposed in front of the whole world. And there is a very significant need to make it clear and to educate people and to explain to them the severe threat that the Iranian regime and its proxies, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah, are presenting to the people of Israel. But not only to the people of Israel, presenting to the Palestinians themselves, presenting it to the people of the Middle East, and the threat that they are presenting to the security of the world. This is a pivotal moment, and it calls for change of paradigm in that regard. The state of Israel is strong. We will prevail. With your support, we are even stronger. Thank you so much.
We thank Avi and appreciate him taking the time to share his insights with us, and we pray for his safety and for the safety of all Israelis. My name is Simone Levine. I'm here tonight because, like all of you, I am horrified by the fact that just a few days ago, the world witnessed the largest mass murder of Jews since the Holocaust. When this brutal nightmare is over, the broken glass may be cleared, the fence may be rebuilt, the houses restored, but Israelis will never be whole. And as Jews here in Toronto, we will never be whole. But in our brokenness, we can act, we can give, we can help save lives that are in danger right now. We can care for those who are traumatized, and we can pay for what's needed: food, medicine, clothes, baby formula, for those who fled their homes with nothing and are sheltering far from the communities that they once felt safe in. That's exactly what we must do together beginning tonight. Along with my family, I'm proud to announce that along with clothing and other necessities, we are renewing our annual gift of $75,000 and contributing $50,000 to UJA's emergency appeal for Israel. We are doing so because we believe that this may very well be the biggest crisis Israel will ever see in our lifetimes, and it is our responsibility to meet this challenge as a Toronto Jewish community. This is especially the case for us, for a community that's one of the most fortunate in the diaspora and is blessed in virtually every way, be it the freedom we enjoy, our relative prosperity, and the strength of Jewish life in our city. I'd now like to introduce a brief video from Yossi Tanuri. Yossi is a dear friend to the UJA and to many of you in this room, having been former Director General of JFC, UIA, and Shaliach to Toronto. Yossi has been based in the Jerusalem Municipality War Room throughout the crisis, and we are looking forward to his insights.
Toronto, shalom Adam, shalom my many friends in Toronto. When I left Toronto, there were many things I wanted to do. There was one thing I was praying I never wanted to be back at, is another emergency campaign, live broadcast, special meeting, and this is a very painful and sad day for me. I want to take you with me to the last 72 hours, not on headlines, not on newspaper kind of details, but to bring you into my life, our life, this country's life through a snapshot that will leave you all with a hurting stomach. I will apologize in advance for the graphic descriptions in some way, but this is it, and this is our reality. I never thought that I'll be there, but here we are. I would like to start actually from the end. I spent this day, I mean, from almost 3 o'clock in the morning. I mean, Lisa was communicating with me at 4 a.m. I was already up, and shortly after, on my way to the southern communities in Gaza as a former officer in one of the top units of Israel. And I'm volunteering there through brothers and sisters in arms, which are top military officers, retired officers. And I've spent the day in there. And I would like to start with actually the end of the day. I had the privilege today of visiting with my son, Guy, who's in Special Forces, and many of you know. And we'll end with Guy because he's the beginning of the story. But when I left his base, which was literally about an hour ago, it's 3 o'clock in the morning right now, there was a soldier at the entrance that had just come from Brazil. He was called and he came right into Israel. And he asked me if I can drop him at a certain point in the base. And I said, of course. He came on, and I was asking him, where do you come from? It's like 2 o'clock in the morning right now. He was telling me he came right from the airport and he was called urgently. And I said, wow, this is so amazing for me. He said, look, I live in Brazil. My grandmother lives in Brazil, and she had sent me here. She had sent me here telling me that you got to make sure that there's not going to be a third Holocaust. My heart was actually stopped beeping in the car. I couldn't, you see my eyes right now, you hear the voice. I never thought that in this stage in my life, we would be saying that there was a second Holocaust. Israelis are looking at the massacre that happened 3 days ago as a Holocaust. This is something in the level of the Holocaust. And I would like to bring you into the first or the beginning, which was the first day. We woke up at 8 o'clock in the morning. Both Tammy and I got calls, from Guy's friends at the unit because they couldn't wake him up. There was a call, for all these first special units and special officers in these units. And then to the rest of the army saying that there is a war in Gaza and all the soldiers were called back in Sukkot. This was at 8:30. By 8:45, Guy was not home, and he was actually already in Gaza at the front communities in Kfar Aza, in Be'eri, in Sderot, you all know well. Sorry for the graphic descriptions. My son is not going to be the same again. I saw him today. The scenes in these communities that were seen, the tragedy in terms of, communities that were literally removed. And when I'm saying removed, I'm talking about, when you talk about Kfar Aza, you talk about a community that 70% of the people in there were slaughtered. And when I say slaughtered, the scenes that our boys and soldiers have seen there are people, and people are from Holocaust survivors all the way to young babies. Their head chops with parts of their bodies that were separated from their body. It was not enough to kill them. It was actually to slaughter them. This is something this country has not seen. And the Jewish world has not seen since the Holocaust. And this is something that we promised ourselves when we built this country, never again, and it happened. This is where we are now, and this is where we're building Israel together from after chaos. The first 2 days in this country were complete chaos. People were frightened. People were shocked. I mean, our belief in our mighty Israeli Defense Forces, in our government, was gone. I'm happy to say, I mean, on a positive, in a positive way, and looking forward, the chaos and the fear here. You see the Israeli lions and what we grew up on back here again. The army is back together, and I've been there today the whole day. The army is back together. The community and the country as a whole is ready because we understand this is to be or not to be. Or Gaza will be, or the state of Israel will be. And I can assure you, Gaza will not be. Gaza will not be. We're fighting to the very end. We're the worst of fighters. We're the worst of their enemy one wants. And we are there. There will be brutality. There will be strength. There will be resilience. And there will be a rebuild of the state of Israel that we so much love. If Israel will not be back, the strong Israel that we know, we love, and we believe in, no community in the world, in the Jewish world, will be the same. So this is not about just a fight about the future of myself, my children, the people of Israel. It's a fight for the future of the Jewish world. And the Jewish world is in Toronto, and the Jewish world is in Chicago, and the Jewish world is now in China. And this is something that the world and the region is looking upon us. You are a critical of our well-being, of our survival, of our success to rebuild this country. When you will be gathering in a few minutes to decide about your commitment to Israel, to decide about the level of your involvement with Israel, I ask you and I plead to you to think about the importance and how important is this country for yourself, for myself, for your children, for my children, for your grandchildren, or for the grandchildren that, God willing, I will have in a couple of years. God bless the state of Israel. God will give us the strength. We believe in God, we believe in our strengths, and we will recapture and rebuild ourselves. Toronto, I love you. Toronto, I count on you. And Toronto, I know that you will never let Israel down. Hugs, strength, resilience. God bless the state of Israel.
We're grateful to Yossi for all he's been doing for Israel at this difficult time. Good evening, everyone. My name is Perry Kirschenblatt. Just a few months ago, my husband Elliot and I, along with so many in this room, were in Sderot on Yom HaZikaron, Israeli Memorial Day, together with hundreds of community members of UJA's Israel 75 mission. This small but inspiring city was in full bloom. Beautiful new condos were being built, and the population was growing by the thousands. A sense of confidence was in the air. Tonight, in Sderot, smoke and the wail of sirens are in the air. Buildings are burned or demolished. The streets are stained with blood. Simply put, the community and many others on the Gaza border is shattered. Its people are still under attack, but they're also very resilient, which is why I know that one day the smoke will be gone, the sirens will be quiet, and the playgrounds will once again be filled with laughing children. Being here tonight, we resolve together to make that dream a reality. And we will do everything we can and give whatever we can to help end the nightmare taking place in Sderot and so many communities like it. Tonight, my husband Elliot and I, along with my family, are announcing a contribution of $10,000 to UJA's emergency appeal for Israel. One of the things we saw firsthand when we were in Sderot was the incredible partnerships the UJA has built on the ground over many years. We also met the truly exceptional team of professionals working on behalf of UJA in Israel, who are constantly monitoring the needs and identifying ways to ensure our dollars make the greatest possible impact. Leading that team is a very special and brilliant person, William Kleinbaum, who many of you know as Willie. Willie was going to join us tonight, however, he is unavailable at this time. Now I'd like to invite Robert Schachter, my Major Gifts co-chair, up.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Robert Schachter, and I'm so pleased to see you all this evening, though I wish it for another reason. As we've discussed tonight, what's happening in Israel is unprecedented. It's unpredictable, and it's rapidly changing. As we just saw today with yet another series of attacks from Hezbollah on Israel's northern border. The needs are massive, they're complex, and they seem to be growing every single day. We are fortunate to have the resources from our community and UJA team, both here and in Israel, which is constantly working with those on the ground to identify where dollars need to be directed to maximize the impact. As we know that every dollar will make a difference today, and there's no limit to the level of dollars needed right now. Sorry. That's why tonight, together with my wife and our family, our annual campaign gift of $18,000, we will double it and add an additional $18,000 to the UJA Emergency Appeal for Israel. I want to thank you all for your commitment, and I want to thank and introduce my good friend David Granovsky of 56 years now, who together with Melissa Muscat serve as co-chairs of UJA's 2023 annual campaign. David's a big part of the reason I got involved with UJA, and our community is so fortunate to have both David and Melissa in this important leadership role at this time in this historic crisis. I now invite David and Melissa.
Thank you, Rob. I told you no crying before I speak. You broke the rule. Thank you for being such a wonderful friend, and you look good for 49. I don't do serious very well. My specialty is comedy, but I'm going to try tonight. Last night, we were part of a parlor meeting at Warren Kimmel's house. There was a ray of light, of sunshine that shone upon our community. In a time of need, in one evening, we raised $30 million. Like a good Jewish person, it's not enough. We need more. We need much more. It was quite an evening. A lot of tears. One of the persons there went from $100,000 to $1 million. He told me how angry he was at what happened, how sad he was at what happened, and how happy he was that his father, a Holocaust survivor, was not there to see what happened this weekend. Yesterday, I went after Melissa, so I got for CLEP before, but now I'm in the middle. It's personal. It's personal for everybody in this room. My heart is broken. I'm angry. My heart is turned to stone for the people that did this to our Jewish people. My cousin, Guy, is headed to northern Gaza. He has 4 little girls. Will they have a father? I pray for him and all the IDF. We need to stand up. We need to not be happy when someone says Israel has a right to exist. We should not be happy with that low level. Israel has a right to retaliate. Israel has a right to seek justice. And Israel has a right to neutralize the barbarians that came to Sderot, Kfar Saba. As many of us stood in May on a hill in Sderot with utter respect, admiration, and amazement when we saw what this community has done and lived through. And we were so indebted to what they have lived through at that time. Rocket fire, kids that got hurt. We never thought in a million years that they would be subjected to death, rape, hostages, and their children killed and orphans made. They give the most precious thing that we have and that they have. They give their kids to the IDF and they put them in harm's way. Tonight, we ask you to stand up and be proud of being Jewish. It's the least we can do. Stand up on social media and make a difference. It's the least we can do. Reach in, not till it hurts a little, till it hurts a lot, because that's the easiest thing we can do, is to give a piece of our success that we've gotten in this great country. Whatever you thought about giving yesterday or today or your drive on the way down, give a little more. Dig deep in these dark days. Be generous and be the leaders that all of you are. On behalf of my wife, Marae, and our 4 children, we are very proud and honored to donate $100,000 to the emergency campaign. We must make sure the Holocaust, which we saw this weekend, never, ever, ever happens again. The IDF needs a job. They know the job to do, and they need to do that job. Every person that crossed into Israel should be neutralized so they can never, ever come back and even think about what they did to our Jewish people. And with those nice words, I will turn it over to Melissa.
David, you've left me now in a bath of tears that are welling up behind my eyes. Good evening, everyone. My name is Melissa Muscat, and I'm honored to co-chair the 2023 annual campaign alongside David Gronowski, who is always incredibly eloquent, funny, and obviously very generous. Thank you to our incredible Major Gifts co-chairs and their families who have stepped up in such a generous way tonight and throughout the annual campaign. Tonight was supposed to be a gala. It's not. And yet you all came here. And I'm so proud to be part of this community. This is an incredibly emotional time for all of us. And
I've said this at many other events. I'm a child of Holocaust survivors. My father was a fighter. He was in the Polish army, which was part of the Russian army. And I know my father loved Israel beyond anything. And I know if he was still alive, he would say, we're going to Israel. We're going to help. We're going to fight. And we can't all get on a plane and go to Israel, but you're here tonight showing your commitment to fight for our country. It's incredibly painful and surreal to look at what's happened in southern Israel. These once incredibly serene communities are now the scenes of massacres that bring to mind the worst pogroms our great-grandparents witnessed and the Holocaust my parents witnessed. I won't describe the scenes of carnage and inhumanity. It's really just too difficult. And we've all seen enough horrifying images and stories. As Perry described earlier, it hurts even more when I think about the fact that just a few months ago, we were all in Sderot together. It was my first time, my husband's first time. And we were there on Yom HaZikaron of all days, and we felt a bond with this community that our community here in Toronto supports. We gathered at the community center for a commemoration service, and then we walked to the Sderot Cemetery to lay flowers on the graves of fallen soldiers from previous wars, from years gone by. And my heart is truly broken to think how many new graves will now have to be dug at that same cemetery which we visited, and at cemeteries across the state of Israel in the coming days. And that Israeli families will have to gather again next year on Yom HaZikaron to lay new stones on new graves. It's really, I've been saying this phrase so much, it's too much to handle. And while our hearts may be broken, we are not helpless, and we're determined to do what we can help. And before I announce my gift, I'm remiss in not acknowledging some people who are here with us tonight. We have 3 elected officials who are members and supporters of our community, and I would like to call them out. Michael Kersner, a member of Provincial Parliament and Solicitor General. Laura Smith, member of Provincial Parliament. And Melissa Lantzman, member of Parliament, Deputy Leader of Opposition, who spoke so beautifully at the rally. I believe the entire crowd was incredibly inspired and moved, and so comforted by the support of her party. Tonight, my husband and Miles have discussed our emergency gift, and we actually discussed it a few times, and we've increased it 3 times since we first started talking about it. So please, if you haven't made your gift, increase it at least 1 more time. And we are very honored on behalf of ourselves and our family to donate an additional $10,000 to the annual campaign on top of our general donation. And I'm telling you, we're going to be back in Sderot, and I look so forward to going back. As a Toronto Jewish community, we'll go back together to spend time in this beautiful community again and to remember and honor its fallen once again. Thank you so very much for being here and for what I know is going to be your incredible generous donation to the emergency campaign. I'm pleased to now introduce Rabbi Rafi Lipner, UJA's Senior Fellow of Strategic Jewish Enrichment, to lead a prayer for Israel's fallen and after to lead us in the singing of Hatikvah. Thank you.
With your permission, prior to introducing both of those, one the prayer and one a tikvah, I'm going to, for fear of being fired, take I love our campaign from this year. Our campaign is, it's who we are. So my speech writing is either the texts of our tradition or the things that I feel in my heart. And I'd like to share both of those tonight. We heard one person say the reason why we're here is because we're leaders, contributors, volunteers. I'm going to respectfully disagree because I don't think that gives each and every one of you enough credit. I'd like to frame the words that came to mind as we started a journey with the high holidays and it ended on the last of the holidays. And there's two areas on both of those which we're all familiar with, which resonate deeply. So about a month ago, we all said the words Teshuvah, Tefillah, Utzedakah, Ba'avirin es Roa HaGezerah. The Teshuvah, we'll define that shortly. Tefillah, we're going to say a prayer. Tzedakah, you're filling out cards. That, according to our tradition, gets rid of any evil. So I want to tell you why I think you're here. I think you're here because of a passage in Maimonides in his Laws of Teshuvah. It's not what you would expect him to say. He talks about who is it that doesn't have a place in the world to come. Think about how you would define that person from a person like Maimonides, a great rabbi, a sage. In the Laws of Teshuvah, what we call repentance. And then listen to his words, actually what were written over 1,000 years ago. Haporesh midarche tzibur. Somebody who separates themselves from the community. Afal pishalo avar averos. They might have never done any violation in their entire lives, have done nothing wrong ever. They just separate themselves from the community. And then he defines that. What does it mean to separate yourself from the community? Lo nichnas b'tzarasan. They don't enter into their pain. Maimonides doesn't say doesn't see their pain. They don't enter into their pain. Lo misana betani sam. When they're unable to eat, they're unable to eat. Ela holech b'darcho ke'echad megaya aretz ki. Flip in between what they can do. Person he says, Ein lo lechem. Is because each and every one of us are part of this community. And that's why the prayer, when I was thinking what prayer to say, to be honest, I moonlight as a rabbi in a synagogue. And we said a lot of prayers. We don't have time for all those prayers. I said this to the staff this morning at our town hall. We could say the prayer for the state of Israel. I think we'd all agree that that's appropriate. We could also say the prayer for the Chayalim, for the 18 and 19-year-old soldiers. I've got a nephew down south in tanks. I've got another nephew up on the northern border. And I just found out before I came that I had another nephew who got on a plane who was teaching in Shlichut. In Flatbush, decided he wanted to be there with his unit. So my brother's going to fly with to New York to be with his daughter in case, God forbid, anything happens. So we could definitely recite that prayer. We could recite the prayer of Misha Berach. We heard about the thousands of people that right now need healing in ways, mental and physical, that we can never explain. I don't think any one of us can say we shouldn't say all of those, but I'll be respectful and we don't. We could say a prayer that I've never said before, a prayer for Jews that are captives. I urge you all to say those prayers on your own time. But I think the prayer that I'm going to recite is one of why we're here. We're not because we're leaders, not because you're philanthropists. You're here because Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael, we're brothers and sisters of the Jewish people. And everybody's blessed with what God gives them. We have brothers and sisters who are blessed to be living in Israel, and with that blessing, they also give of their lives. Let's be honest, the people here are blessed. God said, I'm going to give you guys money or influence. But we're not here because of any of those. We're here because we're brothers and sisters. And therefore, I'll recite the prayer first in English so that when we say the Hebrew words, we know what they are as well. Our brothers and sisters, the entire family of Israel, who are now delivered into distress and captivity. Whether they are on sea or dry land, may God have mercy on them, remove them from distress, from relief, from darkness to light, from subjugation to ultimate redemption, now, speedily, and please God forever. Amen. Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael hanesunim b'tzara v'shivya haimdim bein bayam uvein bayabasha hamakim yirachem aleim v'yotziem mitzara l'rvacha me'efela li'oiro mish'ibud li'geula hashta ba'agola v'zman kariv v'namar. Amen. So that was the beginning of Rosh Hashanah. Then we ended on Simchat Torah. And on Simchat Torah, we end off reading the Torah with the following words. Everybody stands in the community, and they say three words: Chazak, Chazak, v'nitchazek. Be strong, and we will be strengthened. Whenever you have a double language, you have to ask why. If you could get out of shul 1 second earlier, the rabbis would have let us. There's got to be a reason for the double. And I saw that when my new friend Rob, who I got to sit next to, was up here in tears. I'm going to disagree with another line that was said here, and I learned this one from a friend of mine who's here as well. You should not give until it hurts. So me and my family, listen, I'm a rabbi in an Orthodox synagogue. We don't make big salaries. I'm blessed with 8 children, and as opposed to Rob, I am actually 49, so I'm paying lots of tuition. And our family will give $1,000. No. No, it's honestly, no. But I want to explain something. So we know what Jewish tuition is. We were blessed to have just made a wedding. I'm not saying this for any sympathy. I want us to understand. We just finished making a wedding, so we have a line of credit of $30,000 that we're paying off. Thank God we're going to make another wedding in November now, which is my wife's not here because they're in the States to do some stuff that's already been pushed off. We were supposed to be there on Saturday night after the holiday. We canceled that trip. So that line of credit's going to get bigger. And then we said, you know what, it'll be bigger by another $1,000. But then I heard what Darren said, and I thought of the words chazak, chazak. I'd like to play a little exercise here. I'd like everybody in the room to raise their hand as high as they can. And do me a favor, just raise it a little bit higher. So just about 95% of you, when I asked you to raise it a little bit higher, you raised your hand a little bit higher. You thought you were raising it as high as you could. And then you realized if I tried, I could raise it a little higher. Chazak, you have to be strong. That hurts. $1,000, it hurt. Chazak, when you're really strong, when you give till it feels good, then you raise your hand as high as you can. And we do that, then v'nit chazek, we become strong. And that's why, to conclude, the first was the prayer and the second was hatikva. The only time you raise as hard as you can is when you hatikva, you have hope that it will make a difference. And the song of the Jewish people, as you heard from the people on the ground over there, is one always of hatikva, of hope. So I'll ask everybody to rise and to sing and to pray Hatikva together. Kol or baleva Tikvateinu, Hatikva b'shnot habayim, li'otam chofshi be'artzeinu, Eretz Tzion Yerushalayim, li'otam chofshi be'artzeinu.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've been given the privilege to close with telling you that with the gifts we've received tonight, from in total since the beginning, 3,700 donors, our emergency campaign stands now at $38.8 million. Thank you very much for being here. Am Yisrael Chai.